Imagine being in the middle of Canada Day celebrations, surrounded by joy and fireworks, when suddenly a malevolent entity begins to attack the participants. This is the story of a festival that turned into a real nightmare. Are you ready to hear about the terror on Canada Day? Press play and join us. And it was a sunny July the 1st and the city was in full celebration. The streets were decorated with red and white flags, and a lively crowd filled the parks and squares, eager to celebrate Canada Day. Among those present was Luke, a young man who always eagerly awaited this date, loving the spirit of unity and joy that took over everyone. This year, the festival was especially grand, with various attractions, food stalls, live music shows, and of course, the spectacular fireworks that would light up the sky at night. Lucas and his friends arrived early to every moment. They had fun at the various game stalls, watched street performers, and savored the delicious typical foods. However, as the night approached, Lucas noticed something strange in the air. A feeling of unease began to take over him, as if he were being watched by invisible eyes. He tried to ignore this feeling, but to the excitement of the day, but soon he would realize that something much more sinister was lurking. As the sun began to set, the festival lights turned on, and the atmosphere became even more magical. The loud music and people's laughter filled the air, creating an environment of pure joy. However, amidst the crowd, a shadowy figure began to move. It was tall and hooded, going unnoticed by many, but leaving a trail of chills wherever it went. Lucas was in line for a popcorn stall when he saw the figure for the first time. It was standing near one of the park entrances, watching the crowd. Its eyes, despite being shadowed by the hood, seemed to glow with a sinister light. A shiver ran down Lucas's spine, and he looked away, trying to push the fear away. But the discomfort persisted. The figure seemed to be everywhere, always at the edge of Lucas's vision. When he finally mentioned the stranger to his friends, they laughed, saying he was letting his imagination run wild. However, Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. As the night progressed, events began to intensify. People started disappearing mysteriously. First, it was a child who wandered away from his parents for a moment and was never seen again. Then, a group of teenagers who ventured to explore a darker part of the park also vanished without a trace. Lucas, now terrified, tried to alert the event security, but he was met with disbelief. "It's just a misunderstanding," they said. However, the festive atmosphere slowly began to change, becoming tense and filled with fear. The hooded figure seemed to be everywhere, always lurking, always watching. Finally, during the long-awaited fireworks show, the terror reached its peak. As the first explosions of colorful light lit up the sky, a high-pitched scream pierced the night. The hooded figure appeared in the middle of the crowd, raising a skeletal hand that seemed to absorb the light around it. The people around it began to faint, falling to the ground like puppets whose strings had been cut. Lucas, desperate, tried to run to help, but he felt an invisible force pushing him back. He watched helplessly as the figure moved slowly through the crowd, spreading chaos and terror. It was as if a living shadow was consuming all the joy and hope that the festival represented. The fireworks continued to explode in the sky, but now they only seemed to accentuate the horror unfolding on the ground. Lucas knew he had to do something, but what could he do against such a powerful entity? He decided to follow the figure, hoping to find a way to stop the horror. Lucas followed the figure to the edge of the park, where the streetlights didn't reach. There, the figure stopped and slowly turned to him, revealing a pale face with no defined features except for the glowing eyes. With a voice that seemed to come from all directions, the figure whispered, "You can't stop me. I am the fear that dwells in human hearts." At that moment, Lucas felt a wave of despair, but also a growing determination. He shouted at the figure, demanding that it leave the people alone. To his surprise, the figure hesitated, as if pondering his words. Seizing the opportunity, Lucas grabbed his phone and turned on the flashlight, pointing it directly at the entity's eyes. The light seemed to weaken the figure, which began to retreat, screaming in agony. Lucas advanced, keeping the light focused, until the entity disappeared into the darkness. When he returned to the park, he found people starting to wake up, confused but unharmed. Lucas returned to the park, but he didn't find the peace he expected. The people who had fainted began to wake up, but they were changed. Their eyes were empty, and they moved like lifeless zombies. Lucas tried to help, but soon realized that the entity was still present, controlling those people. Desperate, Lucas ran to the park exit, but the hooded figure appeared again, blocking his way. This time it wasn't alone. The people under its control began to surround Lucas, their eyes glowing with the same sinister light as the figure. Lucas realized he was trapped in an endless cycle of terror. As he tried to find a way out, Lucas heard the entity's voice in his mind. "You will never escape. I am eternal fear." Feeling despair take over, Lucas knew the fight was far from over. He was trapped in a never-ending nightmare, where the malevolent entity reigned supreme. Want part 2 of this story? Leave it in the comments. If you have a horror story and want to see it published on our channel, send us your story.